It's time to talk Tottenham 2, Chelsea 0. Yesterday's game at White Hart Lane, which ended Chelsea's run of 13 games unbeaten in the Premier League and stopped them short of breaking the record for most consecutive wins in a single season, which was 13. It would have been 14 if they had won, and that would have been the record. And nobody wants Chelsea to have that record, even if it means Arsenal still have 14 games in a row record. It happened over the course of 2 seasons, so I don't really care about that record, but we didn't want Chelsea to break the record because Arsenal had 13 games in a row in one season, and then they won the subsequent first game of the next season. That was 14. I really don't care about that. I just didn't want Chelsea to have the record. I didn't want them to have the record. I definitely didn't want them to have the record at home. And more importantly, screw those guys. Like, seriously. Chelsea can just, Stamford Bridge can burn in fire for all I care. But more importantly, for this season, with a couple of teams doing well, some middling teams like, I don't know, what's that one team in Manchester, the red one? They've had a couple of good games. And so they're kind of sneaking up the table. So it was important for us to kind of stamp our authority on the season and really win big, a big game at home, and kind of let that Manchester United team know that you're not good enough. You're still below us in the table. You've been below us in the table since Ferguson left, basically. Your time is over. It's time for other teams to take over. But aside from that, we jumped to third. We jumped Manchester City. We jumped Arsenal. A lot of people are like, oh, well, Arsenal's out of the top 4 now. Ha ha ha. I really don't care. I don't care if Arsenal finish in the top 4 or not. I want us to finish in the top 4. So whoever else finishes in the top 4, whatever, as long as we're one of them. Because I think we got to build. Like, a lot of people are still talking. Well, first, let's get into some statistics. I want to talk about these statistics first. Number 1, since Mauricio Pochettino took over, this will be his 3rd season in charge. Since he took over, Tottenham have not lost a home London derby against a home game against a London rival. Not one. That's very nice. And actually, let me read to you a couple of things. Because let me tell you, over Christmas, I came across somebody that Chelsea fans are like the worst people in the world. Like, they're actually bad people. All right. So I met someone who's dating a Chelsea fan. Well, I met someone who's dating a Chelsea fan. I was like, that's kind of interesting. Why did they pick Chelsea? And they're like, she's like, I don't know. He just likes Chelsea. I was like, probably because they're good. That's how most Chelsea fans are. No, there's no Chelsea fan in the United States that's been a fan since before Roman Abramovich took over. That human being does not exist. Okay, no American liked Chelsea before 2004. That is like a species of human that doesn't exist. Okay, fine, whatever. You want to be a bandwagon fan? U.S. sports are filled with bandwagon fans. That's basically how it is. But just to make conversation, I was like, well, let him know I'm a Tottenham fan, Let him know that. So she does. She texts him, and his response isn't like, boo or interesting or anything like that. His response is, they haven't won at Stamford Bridge in 27 years. That's his response. Like, what a scumbag. Like, seriously, what? Who says something like that? I'm just making conversation with you, bro. Like, I don't want to have an argument. I've never met you. I'm talking through a proxy. And I was just letting you know, making friendly conversation. No. There's no such thing as friendly conversation when it comes to football with a Chelsea fan. Incapable of such just normal interactions with other people. But they really like to talk about how Tottenham hasn't won at Stamford Bridge in 10 years or whatever. 20 something tries, 20 some attempts. I don't remember the statistic. It's a lot. Okay, it's a lot. And since the Premier League started, Chelsea have a definite advantage over Tottenham in general in the league. A big one. Historically, no. But since the Premier League started, the Premier League kind of changed things. A lot of teams that weren't very good suddenly became very, very good. And some traditionally, historically big teams kind of tapered off, like Aston Villa. Incredibly successful team before the Premier League. Since the Premier League, not so much. In fact, they're relegated, which is incredible because I think they're like number 3 or number 4 in terms of overall trophies in English football. I think they're number 3. No. Are they 3 or 4? I think they're 4. So I think it's overall trophies. I think it's Liverpool, United, Arsenal, Aston Villa. I think Chelsea just overtook Tottenham in the last 2 or 3 years, and then Tottenham, I think. Something like that. I'd have to look it up. But the Premier League has been kind to Manchester United and Chelsea specifically. Those are the 2 teams that have benefited the most since the Premier League was created. And yes, it's been a dominant rivalry in the last 20 years. But since Pochettino took over, how about this? How about the last few results against Chelsea? The first year Pochettino took over, we played away, and they beat us 0-3. Later that year, we played them on New Year's Day, and we beat them 5-3. The next year, at home fixture, we tied 0-0, and of course, that infamous 2-2 away at Stamford Bridge. They beat us earlier this year away 2-1, and then we beat them 2-0. So it's been a very even rivalry since Pochettino took over. We've traded away losses over the last 2 seasons, except last season we actually drew both games. So that's interesting. Let's take a look at Arsenal. Arsenal, we tied them the first game. Pochettino, first season in charge, we tied them away 1-1. We beat them at home 2-1. The next season, we tied them both times, 1-1 and 2-2. And this season, we've tied them away 1-1. So we actually, since Pochettino took over, have an advantage over Arsenal. How about that? Very interesting. So against our 2 biggest rivals, we actually have either even or winning records since Pochettino took over. I am very pleased about the progress that's going on right now. So that's just to give you a little bit of background. Now, let's talk about the game yesterday. So you had a team that was coming in 13 games in a row, red hot. Eventually, Chelsea were going to lose. There's no way that we're going to go the rest of the season winning. I mean, it's impossible. It was going to come to an end eventually. Now, there was a lot of talk about how Chelsea had so much rest between their games during this festive period. They traveled the least amount of miles out of any other team. Further, they had the most time between games than any other team. So between Chelsea and actually Manchester United had the lowest average opponent ranking, I guess if you want to put it that way. Manchester United's average opponent during this festive period, their league position was the lowest out of any of the other teams. Southampton had by far the hardest, most difficult festive period. They traveled the most miles. They had the least amount of time between games, and their average opposition was highest of the table than any other team. So those are the 2 sides of that spectrum. You had Southampton that had an incredibly difficult festive period, and Chelsea, who had a very easy festive period. And in addition to Manchester United, who had a pretty easy one too, comparatively to everyone else. So everyone was talking about how Chelsea had all this rest and all this time, and I think that they didn't look tired. They looked fresh. They looked dangerous. I was pretty nervous even after 2-0. So I don't want to take anything away. I don't want to say that they played poorly and take away from what Tottenham did, because it was a very even game. I think if you really look at the game, take emotions out of it, because that's all I was. I was all emotions. If you take a look at the emotions, it was a really even game. Hazard had a very good chance early on, and he had another pretty good header opportunity. I think it was already 2-0, but he had a good header opportunity. Maybe it was 1-0. And those were like the two big chances that they had. We didn't have very many good chances either. A lot of our shots came from outside the box. The difference was those two Dele Alli runs and Eriksen's pinpoint accuracy with the passes, with the cross. So if you look at the statistics, they actually had more possession. They actually had more shots. Both teams had 2 shots on target. Lloris saved one of them. I think the other one came right at him. And those were the Chelsea's 2 shots on target. Tottenham's 2 shots on target were Dele Alli's goals. And that was the difference. And that happens all the time in football. You have a team that puts away their chances, and you have a team that doesn't put away their chances. And that's that. And that's really the difference between winning and losing. Because, yeah, they had more chances. Not by much, 11-9 shots. But, the 2 on target, that's what counts. And I think the game was won for Tottenham in 2 specific spots. Of course, we played 3 at the back. And I think the defenders played a perfect game. I think Eric Dyer had maybe like one stray pass that kind of led to a dangerous opportunity for Chelsea. But other than that, they played a perfect game. They completely shut down Diego Costa. He had nothing. He did nothing the entire game. And he's their most dangerous player. Even more than Hazard, I think. Hazard is a very good player. He's very, very good. But I don't think he's their most dangerous. I think he can unbalance a team more than Costa. But if you give Costa 2 inches, he'll blast the ball in the net. But he didn't have that chance because there were always 2 defenders on him. Always. And completely negated him out of the game. Hazard was well defended in the midfield. He didn't really have the space to create because there was always someone in front of him. And I think that's one of the key things that led to our winning, and we shut them down completely. On the other side, Harry Kane was also completely shut down. Their defenders shut him down, and I think that was probably their strategy. You have to shut Harry Kane down because if you give him space, he's going to score on you as well. So both sides did that very well. They shut down the main target, the main scoring threat. Both teams did that. The difference was, I think, that second layer of attack. So Tottenham's second layer of attack. So Harry Kane was shut down, but then you had Eriksen and Dele Alli, who were able to create, whereas Matic and Hazard and Pedro, mostly Pedro and Hazard, were not able to create. Hazard didn't do much. Pedro was pretty much not there. And that's one of the key differences, I think, in what happened. So Eriksen, as the game grew, he became more influential, whereas Pedro and Hazard never really stepped that up. Hazard had those 2 chances, like I said, but those were the only 2 chances they really had, and that was it. Whereas Eriksen made that 2 beautiful passes to Dele Alli, who scored. And the other part, I think, was further up, the kind of defensively, wherein Conte had been like a monster in midfield. Very small dude, but he's always there. He's always breaking up, disrupting the midfield of the opposition. And to be honest, he did, Victor Wanyama out-Conte'd Conte. Victor Wanyama was by far the best player on the pitch. I know Dele Alli got all the headlines because he scored the 2 goals. Wanyama was the player that won this game for us. Like if you had to pick one player that won the game, it was Wanyama because he completely disrupted the midfield. He was just making these tackles, always making good decisions, good passing. I think he had like an 86% pass completion rate. Never caught out of position. Just fabulous game. What he you can't bench the guy. I said this a couple of episodes ago. You can't bench Victor Wanyama. He is unbenchable. He has to start every game. He's been the signing of the season for us. Absolutely incredible. I think Mane for Liverpool is the signing of the season, but Wanyama is a close second. He's just been phenomenal this year, and he completely disrupted midfield. And when you have Wanyama and Dembele, when Dembele just gets the ball and he just like slaloms between two or three midfielders out of pressure, he's being pressured, and then all of a sudden he's not in pressure anymore. And then you have Wanyama who's just going to take the ball from you pretty much anytime he wants. I mean, that's such a good midfield pairing. And defensively, I think Rose and Walker did better than Moses and Alonso. And I think that's the other key to that. Walker just really he's just faster than everyone on that right side. So I mean his runs up and down the right side led to Eriksen being able to pass the ball to Dele Alli for the 2 goals. And then on the left, Rose really just dominated Moses. And I think that was one of the key things that we were missing in that 2-1 loss against Chelsea away. We didn't have Rose. I think he was either injured or suspended, but we didn't have him. And I think that was one of the key differences because the game-winning goal came from Moses. And I don't think that would have happened had Rose been playing. So this time he was, and that didn't happen. Moses didn't do anything. Moses was not a player. He was not a factor in the game, and neither was Alonso because Walker and Rose shut them down completely. In the midfield, Matic didn't get anything going. He didn't have space to create, unlike Dembele who did, and Conte was completely nullified by Wanyama, and then that's what led to the space that Eriksen was able to have versus what Hazard and Pedro had. And I think Harry Kane didn't do anything, obviously, but his presence alone distracted at least one defender at all times, and I think that's what led to the goals because, Kane makes a run, he takes a defender with him, and then Ali makes those runs that he's known for, just in the channel between the 2 defenders, and he's taller than the other guys. He's younger, taller, faster, more athletic, and he just outjumped them. And it was great. It was great to watch him pretty much carbon copy 2-headed goals. Amazing. I was ecstatic. It was really good. I was pretty happy. And you kind of felt that Tottenham were coming into this game really hot, and we don't lose at home. We had just come from 4-1 at Watford, 4-1 at Southampton, I think 2-1 at Hull. That we did not play well at Hull. We went down, or was it Burnley? I don't remember anymore. I think it was Burnley. We went down 1-0 and then we came back 2-1. That wasn't a very good game. We did not play well. We won. And then the next game against Southampton, again, we did not play well. They went up 1-0. We ended up winning. They got a red card. That the whole Sissoko to Dele Alli, wherein the penalty kick was given, Kane missed it, but the guy was given the red card. Bertrand, whatever his name is, Bernard. That doesn't matter anymore. Those 2 games we did not play well. We ended up winning, but we did not play well. And then with Watford, we completely played them out of the park. But I think that just comes to show, like, we're growing up as a team because you think about the seasons before Pochettino came in. like between Harry Redknapp and Pochettino, you had Tottenham who had a lot of talent on the team. But if we faced any little bit of adversity, we just kind of went down. We kind of buckled over and just fell apart. We couldn't handle the pressure. I think Pochettino has changed the attitude of the team. It's no longer doing a Spurs or being Spursy. Yet last year, I don't think last year was the pressure that got to us. I think it was just immaturity. The players were really young. We had the youngest squad in the league. We still have the youngest squad in the league. And it's immaturity, like yesterday, Dele Alli scored his first goal and he goes into the crowd, gets a yellow card for the celebration. That's just immaturity. That's just being 20 years old. There's nothing, that's just him being 20. When you're 20 years old, you don't think, you get excited and then you do. You do things. You don't think before you do, you just do. And I think that's Dele Alli right now. That's a lot of our players. They're still young. You know what I mean? But even from last season to this season, you can see a little bit of a mentality change. The team is more mature because even though we have not played our best 11, arguably, this entire season with Lamela still out, we've managed to only lose twice the entire season. One was that really hard-fought Chelsea game. The other one was that fluke against Manchester United. So we've been in situations where 3-4 years ago, we definitely would have lost. We ended up tying those games or coming from behind and winning those games. And I think that's a huge difference between this year and last. And it's definitely a huge difference between this year and 4 years ago. So the other big thing going on right now is, are Tottenham good enough to win the league? I don't think we challenge for the league this year. I just don't think we do. I don't know. I think arguably we've gotten our hardest two games out of the way. We played away at Chelsea. Actually, our three hardest games, I think, are out of the way. We played away at Chelsea. We played away at Arsenal, and we played away at Manchester United. 3 of the places where historically we don't do well. And I mean, I think it could have been worse, for sure. So next we have a game against Manchester City coming up in a couple of weeks, in the next coming weeks. And then we have Arsenal and Manchester United at home and Liverpool away. And that's going to wrap up the rivals for the title and the top 4. That's going to be it. So Arsenal at home is good. That's a good place to have Arsenal. And then Manchester United at home is a good place to have Manchester United. I think it's going to be, I don't remember exactly. I think it's it's Manchester City away, right? I think it's away because we played them at home when we beat them. I think, right? I don't remember. Yeah, it definitely was at home. And then we have Liverpool away. Those 2 games are not as difficult, in my opinion. I think Arsenal is going to be our toughest game left in the season. Just because of the emotions behind the game. But do I think we have it? I still think Chelsea. I still think Chelsea win the league. I think they have a pretty good cushion. And just because they lost once, like people are thinking, like, oh, is this enough to derail them? I mean, winning streaks come to an end. You can't win forever. Eventually, you're gonna tie, or eventually you're gonna lose. Big deal, I think they wanted the record. I definitely do. They didn't want to talk about it. I'm glad we took it from them. But I don't think that changes anything. I think they're still the most complete team. A lot of people are talking about depth. If they get hurt, if anyone gets hurt, do they have anyone to replace? And I think that's a good question. I think Diego Costa, he doesn't have a backup. Who's going to score the goals as a striker if he goes down or gets suspended? I don't think they have anyone. And off the bench, aside from Willian, who I think is actually their best player, I don't know why he didn't start. I'm glad he didn't start, but he should be starting. I really don't see anyone off the bench that can make a huge difference. Definitely not Fabregas. Willian, I think, is the player that I would be playing if I were Antonio Conte. Uh, but maybe depth-wise, Chelsea have a weakness. Maybe that's their weakness. But who can say that not every other team has that same weakness? Because I think I was kind of worried about who we were going to put in yesterday. We put in Harry Winks, which just shows how much Pochettino believes in the kid. He did really well. I mean, in the few minutes he had, I think he did all right. But aside from Son, who came in as well, he's not a defensive kind of like a shut the game down. We have a lead against a tough opponent. Let's shut this down. Son is not that player. Sissoko is not that player. And I guess Harry Winks is that player now. I just felt like I feel like if we are at our top strength and we play Lamela and he's at his last season's form where he was phenomenal, I don't who do you take off? Like who does he even start is what I'm saying. I don't know. Would he come in to shut the game down? I don't think he's that kind of player either. I don't think he's the player you come in and you put in at the end of a game to shut the game down. I think he's the kind of player you start. He works really hard. He does good things, and then you take him off for someone else. So I don't know. I mean, we have that depth problem. I think Liverpool have that depth problem, and definitely Arsenal have no depth at all. And I don't think Manchester United have very much depth either. So I think yeah, City either. Like you don't really look at those teams and say you have two or three really good players that can come off the bench and make an impact. Defensively, like to shut the game down. Offensively, yeah, we have Son who could come in at any time and score. And Sissoko's been working hard and stuff like that. And like I said, Willian comes off the bench and he's a very good player. But I think depth is a problem for all the teams. So yeah, if Chelsea get a few injuries, maybe they slip. But same thing with any other team. That being said, I don't think we're 7 points behind. That's Are they going to lose next week? Are they going to draw next week? I don't know. We have to see. They still have a lot of tough games coming up, and maybe this is the one season where playing your title rivals is actually going to determine who wins the league. Because it's usually against title rivals, everyone like those games are boring. It ends up being a tie because neither team wants to lose, and the season ends up being won when you lose to a mid-table team or a low end of the table team. Like Bournemouth, Arsenal, that could have cost them dearly. You know what I mean? Because if it's those big games, like you won't see Chelsea Liverpool coming out and just like you won't see like a 3-3 between Liverpool and Chelsea. Those are the kinds of games that you don't do that. You'll see a 0-0, maybe a 1-0, but the teams aren't going to come out all gangbusters like that. Those are the games that the top teams are scared to lose, right? It's those games against middle table and lower table teams that usually make or break your season. But this might be the year where actually it's the opposite. It's going to be close. It's going to be really close, and I think Chelsea have a couple of really tough games coming up. They have Arsenal, I think, in a month, and you remember last time they played. It's a different Arsenal. It's a different Chelsea. So who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen now? It's really interesting. Final thoughts. Do I think Tottenham continue with this three at the back? I think the system suits the players. I think Eric Dyer is good on the right side, and with Vertonghen and Alderweireld right there, Alderweireld on the middle and Vertonghen on the left, and that gives Rose and Walker space to run. And as long as Wanyama and Dembele are playing like that, I don't see why they would change. Like honestly, I think it's a good system, and I think we play it well. Do I think it's the future? I don't know. I really don't. Um, I, I really don't know because that does take away a midfielder. You know, because usually we play a 4-2-3-1, and yesterday we played what a 3-4-2-1 ish. You know, so I don't know. It's a tough call. I could see us playing that in the future. I could see us playing that the rest of the season. But at the very least, it's good to know that we can play it, and it's good to know that we have the two options. We have the two formational options that we can do. And I think the three at the back gives us more width. And I think that's one problem that we've had since forever, since Gareth Bale left, where we don't have width because Lamela likes to cut in. Son likes to cut in. We had Chadley; he liked to cut in. We really had no one who would actually play the lines. We had Gareth Bale and then we had Aaron Lennon, and they would both play the lines. Aaron Lennon always went outside. He always went to the touchline and then cut into the goal line and crossed the ball. And Gareth Bale also went left. But he could cut right too. I mean, he could do whatever he wanted because he was so good. But for the longest time, we really haven't had width. We haven't had that true winger, that can play those kinds of balls. Just like really stretch the defense out, send in some really great crosses. But now we do. We have Walker and Rose, and those guys can do that. But eventually they're going to get tired. They can't just make 80-yard runs, cross the ball, and then be expected to come back defense another 80 yards. They're going to need some sort of defensive backup. And I think that's what the three at the back does. And of course, three at the back can turn into four really quickly if Wanyama drops back. And then all of a sudden we have four really good defenders, So do I think it's a viable option for Tottenham? Three at the back? Yeah, I really do. Does he stick with it? I don't think he does. I think he goes back to four. I think he does the three at the back when he's when tactics are really going to play a big part. But like for example, coming up Aston Villa, the FA Cup, is he going to go three at the back against Aston Villa? No, he's not going to do that because Aston Villa is not a team that requires such tactical changes. Four at the back, just a regular formation against Aston Villa. Even if he plays, which I think he should, because I don't know how Aston Villa are doing in the Championship, but I think he should play some of our youth. Give him a chance, give him a shot. But yeah, that's it. So in conclusion, this is the second time. I'm going to put it like this. We outplayed Chelsea the first half of that loss. They came back and beat us the second half. And then these two halves were very even, minus a goal. So I think we've played Chelsea better than almost any other team has played them, other than Arsenal, because Arsenal just completely massacred them that first half. But other than that, we've played Chelsea without fear, without feeling like we're a lesser team. We've really come out and just faced them like, hey, you're just a regular team. We're not scared of you, and I think that's what really exemplifies the change of attitude that we've had. We're not scared of any team. We'll just come out and play, and I think that's fantastic. And it was great. And also, that this is probably the last midweek game at White Hart Lane ever. So, because I don't think there are any other midweek games the rest of the season. Therefore, there are no more night games. Premier League, obviously, because we still have Europa League. But yeah, that was the last midweek nighttime Premier League game at White Hart Lane. And what a way to send Chelsea off. The last time they played at White Hart Lane, they lost. So that's fantastic. If we could go the rest of the season not losing at White Hart Lane, that would just be fantastic. That would be the best sending off season that anyone can imagine. But yeah, that's going to be it. That's going to be it for now. So we have the FA Cup coming up next. And then we have West Brom. So, and then we have Manchester City. So tough games coming up. Not so much Aston Villa, but West Brom gonna be tough, and Manchester City gonna be tough. So hey, we are on a really good run, and hopefully we can keep this up. And yeah, screw you, Chelsea. Screw you hard. Until next time.